welcome to today's Mastermind session. This is Brad and I'm Jessica, and today we're going to be talking about seller leads, specifically how to get them and what to do with them.
Yeah, this is a concept of, especially now, because we're kind of hearing a theme that's going across the country is inventory is low. The good news is the market is back, but by and large, we get this a lot of how do we get more seller leads. Buyer leads are pretty easy, when it comes to online marketing. Doing some things like forced registration, stuff like that is going to generate more buyer leads, because traditionally a buyer is going to want to jump on the internet and that's how they're going to search for homes. Sellers are a little bit of a different dynamic because it's not all about the listing. There's things like reviews, what the seller's going to do for, what the agent's going to do for the seller as far as marketing. I mean, there's so many different nuances that come into play here. So I'm excited about this particular episode because we're really going to be able to dig down into not only generation of the seller leads, but a critical point that I think so many people kind of fall short on is, all right, you got the seller leads, now what do we do with them? How are we going to incubate them? So I'm excited about this session.
Same here, and I think we're going to kick things off by starting about pay-per-click, which is one of the best ways, I think, to generate some seller leads.
Yeah, and we've done a lot of work with pay-per-click, and I was reading an article the other day that it's pretty staggering, but Google released some data that shows more people are searching for the keyword Zillow than searching for real estate. So what does that mean to agents? No, it's not the end of the world, but a lot of times, and what we see when we're doing our pay-per-click strategies, We'll do a number of things like best real estate agent in, best realtor in. I mean, that's actually people, a lot of people search for those keywords. Mm-hmm. But what is the one thing? Kind of think about, you've gone through the home buying process before. So, when it comes time to sell, I remember with my wife, we debated whether we should sell our home. And then when we kind of made that decision, a couple things happened. Number one was she was immediately on looking at different homes to buy and everything like that. We hadn't even listed our home yet. She was already kind of dreaming about the next home. So sellers a lot of times are tomorrow's buyers. But the other thing is we started to do the math of how much is our home worth, what's it going to take to sell our home, are we going to have to do any improvements, trying to figure out what we're going to net out of it.
Right.
So many times that's kind of where that seller starts off as. So it's obvious to kind of think about that from a pay-per-click standpoint. What's my home worth? Zestimates. They're trying to find anything to really start that process. And so there's really kind of two fronts we look at. One is the process of them trying to figure out what their home is worth, and the other is kind of sizing up that realtor. Maybe they've gotten a recommendation, they've heard good reviews, and so they're looking online as far as is this person legit? Again, what kind of reviews? How are they going to market? So
also what tools and resources they offer that make them the best of the best when selling your home.
Yeah. So when you're thinking about pay-per-click, you really have to kind of look at a pretty wide variety of different keywords. And we've got probably 200 or 300 that we use as kind of our stock keywords in the pay-per-click. But you're right, it's a very easy way to tease that, throw that little carrot out there that says, hey, quickly and easily find out how much your home is worth, plug in your information, and we'll get back with you with the CMA.
Right. So those kind of landing pages from those pay-per-click ads are going to be leading to like a home evaluation form, and then that's going to capture a lead in one way. But what about if they don't fill out the form but they've already been on the site?
Yeah, so you want to hedge your bets, because if you think about it, and we all hear about the stats from direct mail pieces and everything. It's like, okay, maybe they get a 1% conversion rate, or this is going to get a 7% conversion, or what have you. So let's kind of, for easy math, say that this pay-per-click generates 100 visitors to this landing page of how much is your home worth. Well, we know that, okay, 7 people are going to, out of those, 7 people may go all the way through the process and say, yes, my name is Bob Smith, and here's my home, and there's the address, and here's what we've done and go through and fill that out. But a lot of times we kind of look at that and go, great, we've got 7 leads off of it, but what about the other 93 people that we've sent?
Right.
So what we'll do then is kind of look at it as kind of a way to hedge our bets, because we want to really make sure we're getting maximum return on investment of every dollar that we spend. So we're not satisfied with just the 7. We want to make sure we got a game plan for the other 93. And that's where we look at there's going to be another percentage of people who will go in and plug in their address, and then that dreaded, contact information pops up and says, all right, you've given us the address. Now, what's your phone number? What's your email address? A lot of times people, they want to kind of, be anonymous in that. So what we used to do is we would put all that information in one complete form and find out that the majority of people just wouldn't complete the form, they'd leave. Well, my thinking is just getting an address is still better than anything, because hey, give me an address, there's a lot of things I can do with that.
Absolutely.
I can look at tax records, I can see, is this a $60,000 investment property, or is this a $2 million home? I mean, there's a lot of things that you can determine based off of that. So what we do is we actually separate asking for the address versus the rest of the contact information. And the reason why we do that is, okay, we know we're going to get those 7% or whatever of people who fill out the entire pieces of contact information and everything. The second piece is we're going to have a percentage of people, 20, 30, 40% of people will just give us their address and then move on. So we have that as a way to kind of hedge our bets. So now, in addition to the 7 quality leads, we've got another 20 or 30 address-only leads. But then even kind of not even being satisfied with that, taking that a further step and say, all right, what do we do for the people who just click on an ad that we've had to pay for, but then don't do anything based off of that? Well, at the very least, what we can do is think about retargeting and stuff, so we'll plant those cookies. So now if we get 100 people, 100 clicks, we are somehow doing something with all 100 of those, and that's exciting from a strategy standpoint and an advertising standpoint, that you got now 100% effectiveness. And we may not get 100% names and emails, but we know we're doing something with 100% of the people that come to the site.
And you'll be staying top of mind as well with retargeting, which is really
Exactly.
important. Maybe they weren't ready at a certain time to sell, but a few months later they see your ad down the road and they are ready, so they give you a call.
Yeah, we've been looking at a lot of analytics. I'm going to brag here for a second. We were recently selected with Google. They've partnered up with a few different advertising agencies and marketing companies, and in kind of our vertical of real estate, we were selected as to be there in their beta program. So we meet with them every week. They've got an entire team that are kind of overseeing our accounts and helping. So we've been looking at a lot of the data from this pay-per-click, and it's so cool to think of, and you hit the nail on the head, talking about that person who goes to your site the first time and looking at bounce rate, time on site, all of that, and then comparing that to the person who is back a second time, a third time, a fourth time. It's exponentially increased. You may have 2 minutes time on site for the person who visits the first time, but that person who's visited 2 or 3 times, it could be 4 or 5 minutes on time on site. So every time you get them back, you exponentially increase your chances of not only just securing that lead, but actually going as far as to close the deal. So that's a key point with retargeting. I would much rather have those return visits any day, and even be willing to pay a little bit more for that lead, because I know it's that much of a better quality lead.
Yeah, and do you have any examples of some retargeting campaigns that we are implementing now with some clients?
I've got a lot of anecdotal stories. I was just meeting with my attorney the other day, and he was like, dang it, Brad, 6 weeks ago, I went to the website to get your address, and ever since then, it's like Dakno ads everywhere. And I was like, well, that's retargeting for you. I was consulting with a client in DC. We were out to eat, and the client introduced me as, hey, this is my web guy, and Jeff's friend said, I don't know what you do, but I see Jeff's ads everywhere. And he said he's stalking me all up and down the internet. So we'll put some links in the show notes. Johnson County Home Values, I know it's a good one that we do. pay-per-click and drive a lot of traffic too. That gets a great conversion. But just simple to do easy things of a very simple page with that landing.
Great. So we have talked a lot about digital marketing, and obviously we're a digital tech company. We focus heavily on that, and that's definitely very important with buyer leads. But with seller leads, sometimes you have to go above and beyond that. So what are some other strategies in addition to digital marketing that we can
Yeah, I mean, and I'm obviously within the time frame of this webinar. I mean, there's tons more on digital marketing that we can cover. I mean, we haven't even really talked about Facebook ads. Facebook is great for being able to find those likely to sell home people who currently own a home. So there's tons of strategy there. But you're exactly right. Where a lot of times we have to kind of think beyond just the digital realm, because I mean, it's just, I was talking to Melinda Estridge, one of our clients, and she said, I went up against another person, and you know the reason why that person got that listing? She says, because their kid played soccer on the same team as the real estate agent's kid. And he's like, other than that. So, relationships, there's so many things that play into it. If you guys, and I'm going to try, I'm not going to get on my whole creating a coincidence and relationship kick, but if you haven't watched the other webinar I was talking about lead follow-up, I'd really encourage you guys to do that, because it talks about building rapport and everything like that. But so you've got that aspect, but a lot of people say, oh, print is dead and everything. In this case, I think it's a huge a key thing to do. And I know you work a lot on a particular project that gets a lot of seller inquiries and everything. So I'll kind of toss it back to you, and why don't you kind of share a little bit about your experiences with, explain the concept of EDDM and kind of your success with those just listed, just sold postcards.
Sure. If you're not familiar, EDDM is every door direct mail, and it's an incredibly cost-effective way to get some real tangible marketing materials into the hands of some seller leads. So we've utilized this in a really unique way that has kind of 3 levels of benefits, if you think about it. So you have a new listing and you want it to hit the market with a big splash. So you are going to create a just listed postcard, whether it's a huge 8x10 postcard or something a little bit smaller, depending on your budget. You're going to have this awesome postcard on the front. It's going to be showcasing the property price, as much information about the property as possible, which is a great benefit for the seller. But on the back, you're going to say, how much your home is worth? And this is going to go out to the actual neighborhood that your listing is in. So you have a very happy seller who's thrilled to see some tangible marketing that you're doing for their property, and at the same time, you're letting the neighborhood know that if they have any friends in the area that might be interested in the community, then they know about the listing, and then they're going to see how hard you're working for that listing, and they might go and fill out a home valuation form on your website.
And I want to just pause right here and point out something pretty key, because a lot of times people get tunnel vision when they're thinking about their just listed postcard, just sold postcard, and they think that the primary goal is to showcase that listing. Right. But people don't think about, all right, what do we want them to do? What is the call to action? You've heard me talk about is basically is like, if you had mind control, that when that person walks out to the street and opens their mailbox and looks at that postcard, what do you want them to do? And I ask that question a lot, and they'll say, well, I want them to call me. I want them to schedule a listing appointment. And I say, but your postcard doesn't say anything about it. Your postcard's talking about this great new listing and photos and everything, but we don't ask for the sale on that.
Right.
So I really like that approach of using the front to kind of engage people and say, hey, this is all about that particular property. But in the back, then we see that call to action. And I remember, and there's been multiple times where I've overheard you in your office and go, oh, I can tell when the mail hit, because there's a spike in those people requesting to see their home value as well.
Absolutely. And this is a really great thing. One, you can see kind of when you look at, there's kind of, if you were to plot out a map of the new home value addresses that come in, you can see that they're right surrounded on the mail route that the EDDM is going to be on. And mail routes generally range from, I would say, about 500 as large as, I would say, 1,200 pieces per, so that can be a mixture of residential and business, but I definitely want to focus on some more residential routes. But you can definitely see exactly where those pop up and know that your EDDM is working because they're showing up in the community you sent an awesome mailer to.
So that's one way to track, is to really kind of see that where, like you're saying, if you send a bunch of mail pieces to a particular route, and then all of a sudden you see those requests for CMA all coming up in that same street or that same neighborhood, you know that that's a direct result of that particular mail piece. But you could also get even more granular, because that is, to a certain degree, that's a little bit anecdotal to see, hey, it could be that person, prompted from maybe that postcard had an impact, but then they went online and they happened to see an ad the same time and they clicked on that ad.
Right.
So we have to kind of marry the two and look and see and get some more finite tracking. And I know, like with you guys with Dakno Admin, since you guys all have Dakno Admin, we released a new feature. It's been a few months, but where if there's a landing page or anything like that, we could actually create a tracking URL for that, so we can specifically see anyone who comes to this URL is going to be from the postcard or from this. Now, so why don't you explain, because when we generate this tracking URL, we're going to leave some people scratching their head saying, all right, this is our tracking equals this, and this, and it's like, all right, well, we don't want to print that on a postcard. How do we still utilize that, but that great tracking data, but have something that is printer friendly, easy to remember?
Absolutely, and that's where creating some custom URLs with redirects is going to come in. So you find yourself an awesome URL, you can get them for about $7.99 these days. Put that into your marketing budget. Find an awesome URL that's going to be easy to type in, easy to remember. Ask our dev team to help you out, and they'll redirect that custom URL straight through the tracking code, and it'll go straight to your landing page with a value form on it. So you'll be able to see even down to exactly which property the home value form is coming from.
Yeah, and so often people are, kind of part of the listing process to say, hey, you'll get your own website. So a lot of times they'll go out and buy a domain and redirect that anyway. So for a lot of agents, it's something that they're already doing. It's just tweaking that workflow to have that custom domain redirect to that tracking code instead of the particular page. So
and it's a great way to experiment and see what's working and what's not.
Yeah, I mean, it's there was an old saying that said half of all advertising works, we just don't know which half it is.
Right.
And that quote came up when I was working with a prospect, and I said, that was true for the old days of print, and like, if I said I want to advertise in the newspaper, they say, oh, well, we have 50,000 subscribers, and I said, yes, but I want to know how many people see my ad, open up page 3. They can never tell you that. But with something like this, and the neat thing is, even in print, we still have that granular tracking where we can see, all right, is it worth the cost? The other thing, like you're saying, that the cost isn't, most people think like, oh, postcards, and I've got to get printing, and I've got to, labels and per postage and everything. With EDDM, it's super cost effective.
It absolutely is.
So just listed postcards. That's anything else that you can think of, kind of in that realm beyond that?
While there is a cost associated with, you kind of want to look at the ultimate benefit of whether or not the postcard is going to be worth it, because while it isn't astronomical, there is still a cost. So looking at an individual property of listing that you have, what kind of things would make you want to mine that neighborhood, and what kind of research can you do to decide whether or not it's going to be worth it if this is a community you want to mine. So
that's really key, because does it fit your overall marketing strategy?
Exactly.
You've heard me say in the past about silo marketing, and you really have to make sure that everything you do, when we're going to maybe get in, if we have time, of that, what's the primary benefit, what's the secondary benefit, and tertiary benefit. So even if it's, all right, the primary benefit in this case is we want to market that property. The secondary benefit is maybe we want to generate seller inquiries. And then the tertiary benefit is, even if it doesn't do those two, we still have the ability where we've got brand impressions where, so if you're say you have an outlying listing that is not in an area that you typically farm or anything like that, it may not be worth doing that postcard versus if it's something that's like, hey, there's a lot of stuff moving. I mean, you really have to even think of kind of doing a mini market analysis that says, hey, if it's if it's a neighborhood that in the last 6 months only one home is sold,
Right.
well, you're probably not going to spend a lot of time in that, because there's not a lot of turnover in that particular community.
Absolutely. So Brad, we have all these potential leads filling out these home evaluation forms, these CMA forms, but the fact of the matter is we could have some people that are just interested in refinancing. They could just be kind of poking around, maybe finding out what their neighbor's home is worth.
Right.
What's the best way that we can really maximize our time with this and make sure that we're being as effective as possible with
Sure.
these CMA forms?
Sure, because I mean, to do a full-blown CMA, it is going to be time-consuming, and so our goal is hopefully we're generating a lot of leads for agents, and then so it's like, wait a second, a lot of leads, and then something that's very time-consuming. Now I'm just in the business of just telling people all day long how much their home is worth and not doing any deals. So we understand that, and really kind of you got to think about the overall strategy here. You got to think that every inquiry that kind of comes in, it's not immediately like, oh, well, let me get to work doing all this free work for you. So just like on the buyer side, we don't know if they've got a credit score of 12 or if it's a $2 million cash buyer. We're going to have to qualify them. We're going to want to qualify them as well. Now we can do this in a little bit of a creative process. So the goal and what I kind of coach people through is to say, what you want to focus on is you want to make that person feel like that their home is an anomaly. And so, and what I mean by that is that it's like you want to discredit the whole automated valuations, and that's one of the things that the reason why we've been so adamant that we don't want our system, we've got a great group of programmers there can whip together AVMs pretty quickly, but we purposely don't do that because we don't want to say, hey, here's an estimated value of your home, and then do an email drip campaign that talks about how and try to discredit all the AVMs and how horrible they are, and then it leaves them scratching their head going, well, wait a second, but you just use that same thing that you're saying is horrible. So we want to separate ourselves from that, and we want to give a value to the agents. So what I like to do is say, all right, send an email. As soon as a CMA request comes in, we're going to send an email that says, hey, great, automated reply, we're going to get to work right on your CMA. And then we want to see that otherwise we would normally just give them this and do all this work, but we found an exception to the rule. So, and we've got these scripts in the marketing vault. If you guys don't need help finding that, talk to your account manager and they can point you in the right direction. But so it's basically a script that says, hey, you know what, Jessica, I was working on creating your home evaluation and getting a price point, but I came across a couple of, a little bit of conflicting data. You probably saw the same thing when you were looking on Zillow and everything like that. What have we just done? We've now discredited all of the computer valuation models that says, hey, don't trust that. That's wrong. So it says, we saw, and that typically happens when we're relying on public record data. What we do is rely on a little bit more stuff. So we need if you have just a few minutes to answer a couple of questions, that way I can give you a CMA and a value of real substance. So we would, we're trying to say normally we wouldn't have to do this, but with you, your home's a special case. Maybe it's worth more than you realize. Maybe it has gold oil bubbling out of the ground, right? But so we want to make them think hey, it's in my best interest because this AVM, this computer model, is probably bogus. So I actually need to talk to this person. So we send out that, and if the person replies back, says, sure, what time can I call? Now it's get them on the phone. Qualify them. If they're a hot lead, then it is worth doing that CMA. If they say, well, you know what, I just need it, I'm thinking about refinancing, blah blah blah, then maybe you just plug it into an AVM and give them a range. So it allows you to kind of assess, do I really want to spend all that time? So if they don't reply to that first email, then you send them another email that says, hey, just wanted to follow up. I dug into the good news is, you say I dug into your CMA a little bit more. The good news is that you've got a great home, and it could actually be worth a little bit more than some of the models are showing. But to verify, I really just need 30 seconds on the phone, just a few minutes on the phone with you. Is Tuesday or Thursday better to talk to you? Then you can see if they reply back and go, just give me the range, then no problem. You set that expectation. But the majority of times, once you kind of put that carrot out there, now all of a sudden they start thinking like, all right, this person is, and the other thing is they're going to say, this person is going above and beyond.
Right, they already see you working hard for their listing.
That's right. So now all of a sudden it's like, well, you've just separated yourself from all the other agents out there, because the other agents are just kind of dialing it in, using those models, and you can further discredit and say, no, we do things a little bit different. We're about high touch, and we're about showing you that value. So it's a great way to do that. And at the end of the day, if someone hasn't contacted you back, if someone is a bad lead, no problem. Just let them go in the incubation, throw them on that email drip campaign, let the retargeting ads take over. They'll eventually get back and say, all right, if they are seriously considering selling their house, they'll contact you back and say, yeah, you know what, no problem, what information do you need to know?
Exactly. And then by getting that information and working hard and creating a real home evaluation that's based on real data, you're already setting much better expectations for the client that ultimately does become a client that you sell your home with, much more so than an AVM would, which is great for seller agents.
Yeah, and I mean, again, we've seen it where there's so many different nuances, and you can communicate this when you get it on the phone or via email. There's so many different nuances of, if every neighborhood on the street has a great backyard and everything, and then this one house, the backyard backs up to the highway or something like that, the AVM's not going to take that into account.
Right.
An agent is going to take those little nuances. So you guys know that. It's just a matter of communicating that value that you bring to the table to the general public. And I think this sets you up to be able to do that. So at the end of the day, if you get 50 requests for CMAs, you may not actually conduct 50 requests. Let's hope at the end of the day that they're all 50 are legitimate, great leads that want to go out and list their home. I think that people would say that's a good problem to have.
Absolutely, get really good at it.
Yeah. So, but if those 50, out of those 50 people, if 10 are your legitimate ones that actually contact you back and everything, now suddenly you're doing 10 CMAs that you would normally do anyway because you probably already scheduled a listing appointment with them.
Right.
So there's, I just wanted to cover that because I think it's important because people think like, associated with so much work that I'm going to be doing all this work with not a lot of reward. And no, I mean, at the end of the day, you're only doing that work for people that, again, you're probably, have already scheduled a listing appointment for. So
that's why it's very important to qualify these leads.
Yep. We're good.
Okay, so following up with seller leads. We've gotten them, and we've talked a little bit about following up with leads when you have some kind of contact information, whether it's an email or a phone number. But what if you only have maybe a name and an address, or just an address?
Right. So we talked about the fact that we break up that form in multiple pieces. So the first piece is just, hey, plug in your address, and then it goes to the next piece. We do that so even if they bail on us, like we were talking about earlier, we still have the address. We get some pushback sometimes that says, well, wait a second, what am I going to do just with an address? There's still a ton you can do with it, and don't look at it as, well, these are address-only leads that I'm not getting the information in. Remember that whole kind of analogy of the 100, we're getting the 7 regardless. But now we've got the bonus 20, right? So we have to figure out a good streamlined way to do that. What I like to do is, and leverage the resources of a virtual assistant or something like that to kind of go through and process. Look at the leads to see the addresses, to look at tax records to see, that will help. If it's we know that people move every 5 to 7 years, so if it is a $1.2 million property that someone's been living there for 7 years, that's probably a lead that I'm going to chase down a little bit more. And so at the very least, we can do things, and we've actually got a document that we're gonna give you guys as kind of a special bonus for checking out this webinar that walks you through each step of the way in this, and kind of some good documentation there. But I would say that check their information on tax record.
Right.
Look them up in social media. I mean, if this is something that, again, one of those really good quality leads we want to chase. We have a nice little format. I know that with your client that you work a lot with, you have kind of the standard letter that you send out.
Right.
And this is going back to the whole kind of craft and a coincidence where we want to, that letter talks about that, hey, we've noticed a few pocket areas where homes have increased substantially, above kind of the average, and your home kind of falls into that, so we'd love to talk to you about it. Well, if they haven't given their contact information on one of our sites, chances are they haven't given it on other sites.
Right.
So it's kind of being first to market. We are the first people that can contact them because they haven't started to communicate with the real estate agent. So when they get that letter and go, oh, what a coincidence, like this agent's telling me about there's homes in my area that have seen sizable increases in value. Maybe I want to contact them. Right. So that's the first piece. So we're just add them to your database when you're doing a big blast out of postcards or something. When we're not doing the EDDM but sending out the true postcards, we've got the ability to do that. There's a funny story about a client in Hilton Head where, kudos to this guy because he was all about lead follow-up. Just like he needs to be here, we need to be talking to him too as far as lead follow-up goes. But he had, there was a person that went in, requested a CMA, but they only put their address in. They bailed afterwards. He did all the things. He looked him up in tax record. It was actually somebody that trying to kind of rumors that they were selling their property. He went as far as after he sent a letter, no response, sent a postcard, a handwritten note, no response. He said, forget it. He rode over, knocked on the door, and said, hey, you had requested a CMA, and we are all about follow-up and customer service, so here is your hand-delivered CMA, and this is the value of your property. You didn't put your name and email, but you gave us your address, so I am hand-delivering the CMA to you. The guy was floored and he ended up listing this property. It was like some million dollars. Beautiful, beautiful home that he listed because he was that tenacious about his follow-up that says, hand-delivered CMA. So to the extreme, you could take all those addresses and hand-deliver CMAs to them. Probably not, practical in every case. But, it's all about kind of looking at that lead and seeing where the opportunity lies.
And that's where doing your research and, finding out whether or not a lead is going to be a high-value listing or not. And that's where you can take some extra steps. Another small example would be if you have any extra EDDM that you used in a previous listing.
Perfect.
Put a handwritten note with it, send it in an envelope, and say, this is the kind of thing we do for our clients. I just wanted to show you some examples. And that means that you're doubling down on the EDDM, not wasting any in case you had any extra laying around. And it's another handwritten touch.
Yep, or even just putting, if you've got those additional, just listed postcards in the extra EDDMs, slap a label right over top of where it says current resident, throw a stamp on there, and that is pretty well received because it's like, oh man, these guys do some really great marketing, and so it's a great way to do that. I think that leveraging that old content is good. I know that sometimes, and I'm going to put you on the spot and make you tell this story that you told me a while ago. We actually have the ability to when someone goes in and plugs in their information, they don't always know that we are capturing that information in real time. So even if they put a name and not an email or something, we're still grabbing that. I know you've got a kind of an interesting story about kind of a lead follow-up with that.
And I'm going to try to tell this one as tactfully as possible, but we had a client that received a CMA form with a name and an address. So they sent out a personal letter with the name that was provided in the form to the address. So it was personalized to the name. We received a somewhat angry phone call of the actual owner of the home. That was not his name that was provided in the CMA form. It was his wife's boyfriend's name. So while we may not have been a partner in the dissolution of the marriage, I don't think that we helped out at all. So very rare situation. But
moral of the story is if you're cheating on someone and don't try to figure out.
The boyfriend, I guess, was trying to find out how much his
interesting
girlfriend's future ex-husband's
Well.
home was worth. So.
So probably a very extreme, once in a
Yes.
blue moon case of that. But generally speaking, when you don't have interesting scenarios like that, the person's name or the person is going to be. But you know, I asked you to say that just partly in jest, but also that sometimes this can be a great way for buyers or people who are about to be expired listings. Because the few different scenarios that we see is maybe someone plugs in their information because they're thinking about selling their home. Maybe someone plugs in that information to get a CMA because they're currently listed with another agent and they don't like what the agent is doing. Their listing is about to expire. They're trying to kind of get a second opinion on what their home should be listed at. So I know that promotes opportunity for some conversations there. Especially we've seen some good leads close where the person is basically like, oh, well, you know, my listing just expired the other day and I was trying to figure out why, you know, did my agent price the home right? Also, we've seen scenarios where a person is a buyer thinking about purchasing a home and just trying to kind of see like, all right, the home is listed for X and they want that second opinion of what should I offer and stuff. Those are usually people without the guidance of a real estate agent. So it's a great opportunity to kind of follow up on that and then play a buyer agent role in that. So the neat thing is that these opens up a lot of different opportunities for leads and just not with the not just with that side of it. I want to talk about one other thing. I know that we're going to have to cut this soon, but we got to think about, you know, we've talked about the CMA. We've talked about the other ways to generate leads. But I want to talk about incubation of seller leads real quick because a lot of times we think about all the tools to incubate buyers. But sellers are in that same thing. You know, the story I told earlier about when, you know, my wife and I kind of decided to sell the home, we didn't list our home for another couple of months because we thought like, oh, we've got some repairs to do, we've got to kind of get some things in order. So there is an incubation process of sellers also. But you guys can actually use and leverage some of the tools that you have from a buyer standpoint, from a seller's also. And people kind of overlook this, and this is why I want to make sure that we point this out. So if you're a seller and you're thinking about selling and you live in Riverwood neighborhood, don't you think it'd be beneficial if I went to you and said, hey, I know you're not ready to list yet, but what I want to do is I want to set you up for email alerts that every time a new home comes on the market in Riverwood, basically what's going to be your competition, I want you to kind of pay attention to that and see what the price point is and everything like that. So now all of a sudden, something that is traditionally a buyer incubation or a buyer lead can be leveraged from a seller standpoint. Another piece of that is, I know in a lot of markets with our IDX, we have sold data. And so now you can see, that same scenario, hey, no problem, you're thinking about selling your home, or maybe that you've already listed your home with me, and I'm going to say, all right, I'm going to put you on listing alerts, so every time there's a closed home or anything like that, you're going to get that alert of that home that's closed. So now all of a sudden, you're seeing a home come on the market at 260 and all these homes popping up in the market at 260, 275, and then you're seeing solds happening at 250, 255. Right. Now all of a sudden it's you have a better indicator of kind of pricing, or if you're currently listed with me, it could be instead of me having to like, hey, I hate to talk about that price reduction, that price adjustment, you're calling me saying, hey Brad, did you see that home that just closed for 250? Man, maybe we need to think about reducing the price there. So the moral of the story here is we can't get caught up on just these are buyer tools and these are seller tools, that there's a lot of opportunities to leverage both sides of that.
So we've talked a lot about CMAs, how those can be a little bit of work, and sometimes they're for people that aren't as far along in the process. So you're going to have people inquiring at all levels of the process, and you want to make sure that you have people in your funnel all throughout the pipeline of where they are in their sales process. So what other call to actions can we inspire, whether it be on content pages or other campaigns?
Yeah, because I mean, hey, we're a marketing company. We want to be a little different, right? And not just kind of do the same old, same old. The CMA, I mean, it's in my mind, they're kind of the tried and true ones. It's like the CMA on the sell side, the forced registration on the buy side. It's like you have to do those, but there's a lot of other ones you can do as well. So I think it'd be good to kind of go over and maybe we can show some visuals of examples of some of these. The other is just the first one, beyond just the CMA, is kind of that overview of why list with us. Is the one that paints a picture. And remember, me, I'm all about like how we can leverage as much data as possible. So what you can do is all of this stuff that you're doing from a marketing standpoint, you could actually reverse that and show that as your value proposition of what you're going to do for the seller. So all of those retargeting ads that we talked about, all of those CMA ads that we're running and everything like that, I mean, we're talking about, at the end of the day, millions of impressions. We're talking about, I said it earlier that, optimizing and targeting, 200 to 300 different keywords. Well, this is cool kind of talking points for us as a marketing company, but it's also great talking points for you as a listing agent that says, hey, we've put out an infographic, and maybe we can put this in the show notes also, that we did for Linda Kraft that talks about last year we generated X amount of leads. The year, showed had over 4 million property impressions on our ads, got traffic from all 50 states, 30 some different countries. I mean, we had like all these big great numbers that we were able to showcase, and we included in the why choose us. One of the things that I would encourage you guys when you're thinking about this whole, what kind of content should I put on the why choose us, there's a little bit of a litmus test that I like to conduct when we're thinking about kind of that value proposition. I ask a lot, with listing agents, what separates you? What makes you stand out from the rest? And you hear things like, well, I know my market, or you can trust me, I'm very trustworthy, or I've been in real estate for X, yeah. So like with a lot of these things, like, well, you choose me as your real estate agent because I know the market. Well, the litmus test I have is if I could reply back, well, I should hope so. Like that should be the standard for any real estate agent. If that's the reply back, then that's probably not a very valid, unique selling proposition. So if someone says like, okay, well you need to choose me because I'm trustworthy, like, well, I should hope so. I should hope any agent out there, whether I choose them or not, is going to be trustworthy. We talk about the perception of agents. I mean, we're doing nothing but shooting ourselves in the foot, saying you can trust me. What does that really mean? I.e., other agents are not trustworthy. Like, holy cow! So that's definitely a well, I should hope so. I know the market. Well, I should hope so. You're like, that's your job.
That's your job.
It's like, I'm not going to go to a doctor and be like, hey, you should, by the way, I actually went to school for this. I'm like, oh, well, cool. Like that should be the standard, So you really have to think about what is your unique selling proposition, and you can do that with, hey, we have a specialized system that's a 318 point to-do list that we do, or we have an entire team working for you, and you're going to have a dedicated this. We're going to, additional things like free staging services. That, like, now suddenly we're getting into something that's a little bit more unique, to something that is kind of above and beyond.
Right.
So when you're thinking about that why choose us page, really kind of put each and every point to the test of, does it pass the, well, I should hope so test. There are some others that beyond just the why choose us, some things like guaranteed sell, we'll sell your home in 90 days, if not, we'll buy it. There's some that's kind of along those same lines of we'll sell your home in 90 days, if not, we'll sell it for free. I mean, there's a lot of different kind of variances with the little asterisks of everything. I know Accent Realtors does a great job with their guaranteed sale
I'll
program.
definitely show you guys that page.
Yeah, that's an awesome one. I mean, I'm kind of biased because we designed it, but I still think it's a great one that gets really great results. In fact, I joke around with him all the time, like, you're telling me this, and he's a data guy, but just the numbers are staggering. He says that his close ratio on leads that come in from the guaranteed sale is north of 80%.
Wow.
Like, yeah, you heard that right. So if 10 leads come in from the guaranteed sale, he is going to, like, not to listing appointment, but to actual listing. He's, 10 leads comes in, he's going to get at least 8 of those listings. So incredible numbers there. They've got an awesome little system that they really do and leverage. The other one is, it's kind of funny because one that, I'll be honest, at first one of the account managers actually came up with the idea, and I was like, try it, but I had pretty low expectations. Is this whole list my property now button. I think, all right, no one's going to actually, like, they're going to request more information, they're going to request something, but how many people are actually going to go, oh, you told me everything I know, great, I don't even need a listing appointment, just list my property now. We did it on a couple of sites, and it was just jaw-dropping that how much people, and if you think about it, kind of going back to what we were talking about with other things like reviews and referrals and recommendations from others, it kind of makes sense that if someone says, hey, you should really use Walter, he's a great guy, he sold my property, excellent customer service, the whole nine, and then you go to the site and go, all right, well, my best friend told me to use Walter, looked at all the stuff, looks really good, that's all I need, list my property now. So that's another key thing that sometimes we get so tunnel vision on the creative that just like, hey, sometimes it's just ask for the sale.
Absolutely. Depending on the source of the referral, that could be enough for you.
That's right. So, in thinking overall about, again, the marriage of multiple, kind of that multifaceted approach where you're going to, it's not that the list my property now button is the magic bullet that, is going to do that. However, if you have really great reviews, and then you get a good recommendation, and then they go to the site and they see this Why List With Us page, and they've got compelling content there, and they've got all of this. Well, now everything is building upon each other. So now it's so where you've got that really solid value.
Right.
So I know we got to wrap things up, and we're almost out of time. But I hope you guys were able to get some good things out of it. I know this kind of prompted some good discussions, between breaks, and it's always good when we can kind of generate new ideas from it. And I think that that's really the goal here. What we really want to do is to have this more prompt conversations, additional conversations with your marketing specialists and how you can leverage some of these things. And trust me, if you don't reach out to them, I'm sure we'll be reaching out to you soon with some of these strategies on how to implement those as well. So I think this has been really good. I think that just kind of in summarizing all of this, some key points are to, with everything, whether it's the seller leads or what have you, make sure that you've got a marketing strategy that you got your primary goal of, again, at the end of the day, I sure hope that everybody who goes to the site is going to fill out their complete name and email and social security number, the whole nine of, about it. But even if we don't get that, we have to hedge our bets with that secondary goal and do that with the tertiary also. So I think that if we take that approach with our leads, if we take that approach with driving traffic, if we take that approach with our lead incubation, it's the same thing with when we're doing that lead follow-up. All right, the goal of the lead follow-up is for them to pick up the phone and say, hey, yeah, come list my property now. But even that as we kind of pull down, those emails that you're sending out, even if that person doesn't pick up the phone and call you, you're staying top of mind.
Absolutely.
So there's your secondary and tertiary go there. So when you guys begin to think about different marketing strategies, really try to take that perspective, and I think there's some good tools that we can implement there. Like I said, we've got an entire document in addition to some of the resources that we talked about today. We've got an entire document that walks you through how to do your lead follow-up from the CMA standpoint. That's normally kind of, we have these internal documents that we arm our marketing specialists and account coordinators with. We're going to make kind of an exception to the rule this time and share that with you guys. We would just ask that you kind of keep that close to hip, and instead of, don't tweet it out and throw it on Dropbox for everyone. But it's a great tool, so you guys will be getting that. Just talk to your marketing specialist about getting a copy of that. So, well, I think today was fun, and feel like we got some good stuff out of it.
Absolutely. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye-bye.